G'day. Well, today I want to talk about what I consider just about the worst of Jesus' miracles, and it's found in Mark chapter 7, verses 24 to 30. Reading the passage, it says Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and didn't want anyone to know it, yet he couldn't keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. Just about the most off-putting miracle Jesus performed is the healing of the woman's demonized daughter. How could Jesus possibly call her a dog? She was desperate. And I suppose most of us have been desperate at some time in our lives. People face loss of work, eviction, terminal illness. I think of the crises friends have endured with divorces. It's a crisis when one of your children is really ill, you feel so powerless. And before one of my daughters was fully vaccinated when she was very little, she got a really bad chest infection. It started to sound like whooping cough, and I felt so bad, so completely helpless. Imagine how the Syrophoenician woman felt when her little girl was not merely physically ill, but was demonized. I knew a strange couple with troubled children. An angry, sarcastic boy, his strange family turned him against faith. A sister totally out of control. She smashed things. She was violent and abusive toward her parents and her brother. She was constantly in trouble at school and promiscuous from her mid-teens. Then she'd suddenly turn cheery and talkative and cute, mostly when she wanted something. She knew right from wrong, but she didn't care. It worked for her, and if it did, she did it. If not, she didn't do it. It was that simple. A psychologist diagnosed a personality disorder. She had no empathy. There was only one real person in her world, and that was herself. It devastated her parents. If that affliction distressed Alice's parents, imagine how this Syrophoenician woman grieved over her daughter's condition. Even then, you could give some treatment for a strep throat. But what do you give a child for something for which there's no medicine? Something incurable, something seeming to come from beyond this world. And what do you and I do about troubles and afflictions for which there seem to be no cure? In particular, what do we do about the spiritual troubles we face? In our passage, Jesus goes on holiday. Matthew also says he took his disciples with him. He wanted them to learn how to take holidays and how to keep ministering on holidays. I was at Warrnambool in Victoria when I got a call to take a funeral in Sydney, and I couldn't break my holiday to fly back to Sydney, so I recommended a fellow pastor. But there are times when you're away and you can minister, like the time I was in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales. A local man talked to me about his young son. He had some concerns. I was encouraging, reassured him, and suggested that the local church, which I knew something about, would be a good place to minister to the needs of that whole family. You don't stop ministering when you're out of your district. Similarly, Jesus stepped back from preaching and teaching in the Galilee to take an international holiday. But when ministry came to him, he responded. So we read, Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and didn't want anyone to know it, yet he couldn't keep his presence secret. However, as soon as she heard about it, a woman whose little daughter was demonised came and fell at his feet. She was a Greek from Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. I knew an Aboriginal bloke who often joked about himself. He said, "My name is Wally. I come from Dubbo. I was born on the banks of the Bogan River. I'm a Wally, a Dubbo and a Bogan. I'm a 3-time loser." You know, that slang for Australians. A Wally isn't very bright, a Dubbo isn't competent, and a Bogan lacks class. Many Jews would call this woman a 3-time loser. She's Greek, to many Jews a corrupting influence, immoral and irreligious. She's Syrian, and the Syrians often oppressed the Jews. And she's a Phoenician, like Jezebel, the Phoenician princess who introduced worship of Baal. You remember Elijah confronting the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. And this woman begs a Jewish prophet to deliver and heal her daughter. She's a brave woman. She knew how Jews considered people like her. Jews called Gentiles dogs. Dogs in the Jewish mind were filthy scavengers. You get diseases from them. As a Gentile woman, she was considered unclean. As a pagan, she was considered beyond God's care. As the mother of a demonised child, she was clearly under God's judgment. In the Jewish perspective, how could she approach a holy man of God like Jesus? But she did approach him. If there was a door, she would kick it in. The Greek says she begs and begs and begs Jesus to deliver her daughter. It's a present continuous tense. She goes on begging. She's like that merchant who sells his jewels to buy that one pearl of great value that he'd been searching for, or like the labourer who sells everything he has to buy a field with buried treasure in it. Nothing is going to hold this woman back. As Matthew tells, not even the disciples can stop her. She pestered them before Jesus even appears, and when he arrives, they say, "Tell her to go away, Master." You can imagine Jesus, with his compassion, how he would rebuke his disciples and listen carefully to the woman, except he doesn't. Instead, he says, "First let the children eat all they want, for it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." Why does Jesus imply she's a dog? Well, it isn't as rude as it sounds. He uses a word that's only found in Mark's and Matthew's accounts, and it means a house dog or a puppy or even a pet dog. Jesus doesn't say they shouldn't be fed. He just says you feed the children before you feed the pets. First, you feed the children. So he tells the woman, "My fellow Jews would call you a dog and say you deserve nothing and will get nothing. They say, kick her away, chase her from the house, so we never see her again." So Jesus is saying to her, I don't see you like that. You belong. If the children get fed, so do their pets. They're all part of the household. For centuries, Jews had turned Gentiles away and treated them like filth. And Jesus says, you aren't Jews, and I'm sent to the Jews first, but you'll have your turn too. Jesus told his disciples, according to Matthew, that he was sent only to Israel's lost, but as soon as he was risen, he sent his followers to make disciples of all nations. So he isn't telling the woman you don't belong. He's saying, you're in the picture. It won't be long. Here's where the woman gives the most amazing answer. Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. In effect, she says, I get it. I respect your position, but there's plenty on the table. Surely you can spare some crumbs for us puppies. I can imagine Jesus laughing. He left a loophole and she wriggled right through it. He didn't say, I won't do it. He said, I have priorities. And she said, okay, fulfill your priorities, but chuck a scrap to me and my daughter. And here's his answer. Then he told her, for such a reply, you may go. the demon has left your daughter." She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. What's the bet she ran back to tell him what he already knew? The first thing we need to realise is just how significant this story is in the whole gospel. This woman might be a 3-time loser, but she's one of the first to hear Jesus' teaching and truly understand it. If ever there was a sign that the gospel is for everyone, particularly for outsiders, she is it. But there's a lot more to see. Was it Norman Vincent Peale who said that if you want something done for you, ask people who helped you before, and the best way to ask is to remind them of what they did for you. It's a very basic principle, and it works because it's based on relationship, not on obligation. There are many reasons someone might help someone else, but without a pre-existing relationship, people most often respond from a sense of duty. So when someone turned up recruiting supporters for UNHCR, I felt it was my duty to support refugees, and this was an opportunity, so I signed up. Now, when they phone asking for extra support, I don't think about my duty. I think I already support them. I suppose I could give more. Whether I do or not, that depends on the circumstances. But push the duty button too hard and people jack up. 20 years ago, some very committed people on our churches, on our denomination's missions council, sent out so many begging letters that people stopped giving. They felt bullied. It was even raised in the assembly meetings that we're just getting too much literature from them. This woman could have told Jesus, "You're the Messiah, it's your duty to help my daughter." Or she could have argued, "Your Jewish prophets always taught fairness." She could have pleaded, "I'm a good woman, I deserve this." Or she could have said, "God has left us Gentiles behind for so long, it's time we got to go." But would these arguments really have swayed Jesus? He wouldn't be persuaded by feelings, but the implication, if she'd said these things, was, "Jesus, you aren't doing your duty. You don't care about my good deeds. You're disobeying your own prophets." Instead, she said, "I have no claim on you. I just believe you're good and that you can share a blessing with my needy child." This ethnically Greek Syrophoenician woman with the demonized daughter teaches us a vital practical truth for every part of our lives. She had no claim on Jesus, nothing to offer, no bargaining position. In fact, she's just like us. Until we recognise how bereft of leverage we are, how nakedly we stand before God, we will never hear and understand what he's saying to us and what call he's making on us, because only then can we see that we too have nothing to offer and can do nothing but lean on his grace alone. We often used to sing that old hymn, "When darkness hides his lovely face, I rest on his unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. On Christ, the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand." When crises come, when hope is lost, on whom can we rely but Jesus? When darkness surrounds and we long for the light, what will reach us but love? When we sink deep in sin, when the storm rages high and the devil raves loud, what can save but grace received by faith? Jesus is here right now. Where 2 or 3 gather in his name, he's in the midst. He's not confined to Jerusalem or the past. COVID doesn't slow him. He is risen, and where he is needed, he's there. If he's speaking to you today, simple trust in his grace will bring his love and power into your life and your situation, and the crumbs for which we plead will turn out to be unanticipated riches. May we all find it to be so. Amen.